Marvel's Midnight Suns is a tactical, deck-building, role-playing game made by the creators of XCOM. Now, these cards here aren't actually the game, they're just examples that I'm using. Now, you would assume that XCOM itself influenced the game, but when they tried to mesh the two, creative director Jake Solomon found it doesn't make sense at all. So where did the team get the inspiration and building blocks for the game? How about Dragonball Fighterz, Slay the Spire, Fire Emblem, Into the Breach, Persona, Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer? Each of these rather different games and series contributed to different aspects of Midnight Suns. I'll let Solomon explain each of them, but first, let's take a look at why XCOM's award-winning tactical formula didn't work for Midnight Suns. Solomon jokes that at first, I think I originally thought, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make XCOM and we're going to put some Marvel superheroes in and it's going to be awesome. There was just one problem. It wasn't awesome. In fact, it didn't work at all. That's how stupid I am, Solomon says. I was like, this is going to be great and easy. And then you get a couple of weeks in and you're like, this doesn't make sense at all. Firaxis quickly learned that the bones of XCOM wouldn't mesh with the power fantasy of Marvel. Players needed to feel powerful and see their favourite heroes looking powerful, but they couldn't actually be overpowered because the game needed strategic depth. Like, we want Captain Marvel's punch to be like, boom, yeah, Solomon says. And then when a number floated up, and this sounds crazy, but this is how design works, a number floated up, but it was like 2. And you're like, what the fuck? In the game, heroes needed to start off strong and get more powerful over time to fuel a sense of progression. Abilities needed to be consistent, but combat had to have tension. This line of thinking led the team to an unlikely solution: cards. This is why the game Slay the Spire was such an inspiration. When the XCOM method didn't work, the team started trying everything and anything to design a new system. How on earth do you design a whole new system? You start trying everything. And then we got to a point where we were playing a lot of Slay the Spire, and we're like, well, can we make that work? Now we can give heroes really powerful abilities in the start of the game, and then all of a sudden things started working. That wager paid off. Cards feel like a good fit for Midnight Suns' combat system, which avoids the complexity of large card decks. Each hero has a deck of just 8 upgradable and interchangeable cards, and you'll regularly only play with just 3 or 4 cards a turn, budgeting power based on your immediate goals. Goals which should be easier to determine thanks to another game. Into the Breach 2, because of how predictable they made it. Our enemies have intentions over the head specifically because of what Into the Breach has done. I really like how much more predictable it was. I was like, oh, it's great when you can predict everything. In addition to the cards you play and enemy intentions at the same time, you'll also have to balance your relationships with your teammate. Yep, here comes the JRPG influence. The game's home base, the Abbey, is much more detailed and involved than your usual XCOM headquarters. It's also a space to develop more personal, but not romantic, relationships with your favourite heroes through a robust friendship system. You can hang out, give them gifts, and chat to them in branching dialogue. It will immediately remind you of games like Persona. Solomon also revealed to us that another game was a really big influence during development. When Fire Emblem Three Houses came out, we were a couple of years into development on this, and the name of that place in the game was the Monastery or something like that. It wasn't the Abbey, but it was real close to that. And I was like, holy shit, you've got to be shitting me. But yeah, I played a lot of Persona and I went even deeper than that, because Japanese developers have been doing awesome tactics games combined with RPGs, especially relationships. It creates this resonance where you're like, I'm worried about them in the short term in combat, and then I'm worried about them in this meta way back on the strategy layer. And it creates this interesting loop. Getting to know your favourite squad off the battlefield makes you more invested in their growth and well-being. Even with our limited time with the game, hanging out at the Abbey captured the enjoyment of that distinctly JRPG progression loop. The team's Japanese inspirations don't end there either. A specific anime also influenced the look and feel of the game. When you've got one of the most powerful beings in the universe on your team, you don't want Captain Marvel's attacks to feel underwhelming. Like Captain Marvel shooting a photon beam. If the animation is powerful and fast and snappy, but then the particles come out slow and wavy, it's kind of like a cloud that loses all of its energy. Beyond Marvel Comics, some popular anime helped give art director Dennis Mullers the inspiration he needed. These full screen flashes that they're doing on impacts, they're holding, anticipations. They're going through these extreme camera angles. They're speeding up and slowing down time to ridiculous amounts. Mullers points out to a few popular moments from recent anime as standouts in the highlights reel he assembled and studied. Levi shredding the Beast Titan in Season 3 of Attack on Titan, for example. Tanjiro eking out a win in Episode 19 of Demon Slayer Season 1, which lit the entire internet on fire when it aired. Another reference for anime and games with impactful combat was Dragonball Fighterz. Muller praises Dragonball Fighterz for nailing 2D flourish with 3D models. How quickly animations or effects appear and the framing of attacks don't seem like it would make much of a difference. But Fighterz shows how stunning it can be if done well. Effects are incredibly important to it as well, he says. So I was showing off how quickly the effects appear in Dragonball Fighterz, and they move like lightning. Like framing through lightning, and it's just this pose and then this pose and your electricity kind of popping. So we specifically looked at that and just a bunch of different animated clips. But I remember specifically Dragonball Fighterz. Marvel's Midnight Suns is a chimera of licenses, anime and genres with both Eastern and Western design principles, and after spending a few hours with it, we can't wait to see how it plays out in the wild. And for those XCOM fans who are maybe a little bit worried they might not enjoy this new tactical smorgasbord that doesn't have a lot linking it to XCOM, creative director Jake Solomon wants to reassure you. To people who've been fans of the stuff we've done here before, I'd say don't worry, we're still us. We still rise and go to bed thinking about the gameplay. So, if this has made you interested in Marvel's Midnight Suns, make sure you subscribe, like, and go to GamesRadar for all the rest of the content that we've got on it.